Hi everybody and welcome back. So today I wanted to talk to you about how to contact journalists when you're looking to get some press coverage. And that could be in a glossy magazine or in a newspaper or even for TV or a podcast or radio. And the reason I'm talking to you about this today is because it can be a bit troublesome to find contact details for journalists these days. I think many years ago it was dead easy. They were all just listed in the magazine with the contact details, and that was it. You just needed to go to the magazine, have a look, and there they were. But things have changed now, and using the magazines isn't as fruitful as it used to be. So there are different ways to do it. It's a bit of an insider secret, really, and I wanted to talk to you about it today. I do sometimes wonder whether the journalists actually want people to contact them, because having been an editor myself, I know that we don't put the telephone numbers or email addresses of our staff in the magazines anymore. And I'm not really sure when that decision was taken. I know before social media was invented many years ago now, God, I sound really old, you just had your telephone number, and if you had an email address, then your email address in the magazine, and that was that. But as I say, now they don't have them there, and you really have to do a little bit of digging to find them. Now, I know that the journalists do want to hear from you, but they certainly don't make it as easy as they could these days. Now, it's really important that you do this work if you want to contact the press, because it's key that you contact the person you needed to be contacting. Let me explain a little bit more about that. People always just assume that if they want to contact somebody on a newspaper or a magazine, it will be the editor that they need to get hold of. Actually, that's not the case in many instances, because the editor of a magazine is often like the figurehead, the person who does a lot of the strategizing, the visioning, speaking to the publishers, creating content plans, but it's actually somebody else that takes in pictures and press releases, because the editor is far too busy. Now, that's not the same on every magazine, but it's certainly the case on a lot of magazines. So when you're thinking about pitching into the press, you need to look at the list of people that are in a magazine and just try and work out whether there's somebody other than the editor that you should be dealing with. So a good thing to think about there is look to see whether they've got a features editor or a deputy editor or a commissioning editor, because they're the people who will be taking in press releases and pictures. So if the magazine's got one of those sorts of people, then you probably don't want to bother the editor with it and contact them instead. Now, the editorial teams on magazines have got much smaller over recent years for all sorts of reasons. And now you might find that a team has only got an editor and maybe a sub-editor and an editorial assistant, and there is no commissioning editor or features editor. In that case, then you go straight to the editor. So have a think about that when you're looking in the magazine at the list of staff. Is there just the editor and nobody else, or is there somebody underneath them that you need to be contacting? And also, if you want to be in a particular section, so some of the big magazines like Cosmopolitan and Vogue that have got lots and lots of sections in them, you need to be contacting the editor of that section. So they may have a beauty editor, for instance, or a motoring editor. And if that's where you're pitching, if you've got something to do with skincare or a new car that's been launched, then you need to go to the relevant section editors. So I've got a copy of Psychologist here. This is a really popular magazine amongst the clients that I work with. Everybody wants to be in psychology. It's not the easiest things to get into, but it is possible. And if I turn to page 6 in this has got the list of staff down this side. It's quite a long list on here, but they're not all editorial staff. And this is on there right at the front of the magazine. So it says its contents and then the list of people who work for the magazine and the contributors and things. Now, that's not the same in every magazine. This is called a flannel panel. And the flannel panel could be anywhere in a magazine these days. It used to always be at the front like it is here in Psychologist. But you might find now that it's right at the back or it's on the letters page. It could be anywhere. So you've got to seek around a little bit to see where this list is. So in Psychologist, it's near the front and it's got the office address at the top. In this case, it's in Kent. And then it's got a section that's called Our Team. And it's got an editor, managing editor, art editor, health and wellness editor, a picture editor and a book editor. So you can see there that if you're practicing to health and wellness, then there's somebody there to contact about that. If it's anybody else with this magazine, you want to go and need to contact the editor, who's Susie Greaves. But the thing is, there's no telephone number or email address for her. It's just the name. So what you need to do there is look at two things. First off, on these pages, there is always a section where it says advertising staff. And because the magazines desperately want you to contact the advertising staff if you want to advertise, so they're there for people who are advertising, not people who are getting press coverage like yourself for free. They don't want to hide their contact details. Obviously, they're desperate for people to want to ring them. So, for instance, with this, they've got a long list of people who work on the advertising team, and they've got phone numbers next to it in this one. Now, that's not going to be that useful for you because you don't want to ring the advertising staff. But that is just this magazine. If you look to a different magazine, you might find that the advertising staff have also got their email address listed. So it might be, so if you take my name, it might be julie.brown@wayfair.com. That could be me as an advertising member of staff. And if that is the case, if there is a member of staff in the advertising team where their email is listed, then what you need to do is just swap their name out for the editor's name. So if I'm julie.brown@wayfair.com or .co.uk, whatever I said, but it's Susie Greaves that you wanted to be contacting, you would do susie.greaves@wayfair.com. So you just take the name out of the person who's listed that you don't want to contact and put the name of the person in that you do, using exactly the same format for the email. The other way that you could contact them, and this is how I did it when I was talking to psychologists, is just ring the main office number, because there'll be either receptionists or editorial assistants who will be more than happy to help you, and they may not give you the number of the editor, but they're more than likely happy to give you the email address. So if you can't figure it out yet, there's no phone number, there's no email address like there isn't here, and you really can't figure it out, then just ring the main number and get it that way. And then the other option is to play detective, because nearly all journalists now, whether they're editors or writers or features editors or whatever, will be on social media somewhere. Generally Twitter, that's where most journalists hang out, I have to say, and they're in there all day long. So what you need to do is nip over to Twitter and just search Psychologist Magazine, Top Scientist Magazine, Cosmopolitan Magazine, and see what comes up. Or you could put Cosmopolitan Magazine editor, Top Scientist Magazine deputy editor, and just see what comes up. You'll probably find their username on there. And then you can contact them that way. You can direct message them. But a good thing to do on Twitter before you start doing that is actually just do some engaging with them on Twitter. So if they're saying something, they've got a point to make, or they're talking about their magazine or feature that's in the magazine, then get on there and engage with them. Talk to them about the feature. Oh, I've read that and I thought it was a really good idea. Or if they've got an opinion about something, you can agree or disagree. Just anything really that gets your name noticed by the person that you're wanting to contact. And the reason that's a really good thing to do is because you're then building relationships with these important people. And getting press coverage, media coverage, getting on the TV, radio is often around relationships. And that's why people hire other people to do their PR for them, because they've got the relationships with the journalists or the televisions or the podcasts. They don't. So they're sort of in the dark a little bit when they're pitching out. But if you can make some relationships and some connections with people on Twitter, then when you do pitch to them an idea or you ring them with something, they will remember you because you've been talking to them on Twitter. So that's just a little insider tip. Get in there and get talking to them, engage them, be funny, be helpful, be supportive, and they will remember you. So when it comes to that important moment where you want to ask them for some press coverage, they're much more likely to say yes. And this trick works across all media. So if it's a TV producer you want to speak to, or a radio producer, or a very famous podcaster, and you can't find their contact details anywhere else, take to Twitter and find them on there and start talking to them on there. Now, obviously, you're going to need a Twitter account because they're going to want to know who you are. Don't be worried too much if you're not using a Twitter account all the time. Just be on there enough just for them to see that you're engaging with people, that you've got a little bit of a following. You don't have to be an expert. You don't have to have hundreds of thousands and millions of followers. You just have to be engaging some way. So get on there and do that. Any questions about that, please comment below and I'll get back to you straight away. Hope that was very clear. It isn't as hard as you think. You just have to play clever, really, and just use a bit of common sense. So I hope you enjoyed that. Of course, I would love you to subscribe to this channel. So just click that subscription box wherever it is on the screen. And also, if you click on the notification bell, you'll get a notification every time I upload a video and you won't miss out on anything. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.